What's up, guys? Coach Jared here with episode 9 of the Richmond Elite podcast. Today I'm joined by my good friend Conrad Bush. We got a lot to talk about today, so we'll get to it. So Conrad is the owner of Live Active 563, also located here in the Quad Cities. They are a group fitness facility, also do some sports performance. Conrad's been coaching for a really, really long time, I think, right?
Yeah, like 11 years.
11 years. So yeah, we've been good friends for a while now, through the mutual fitness community here in the Quad Cities. And yeah, we have some exciting stuff to talk about today. Conrad is actually going to be coming on as a coach here at Rep, bringing, like he said, 11 years of experience. He's going to help us continue to build our adult fitness program that we have here at Rep. Obviously, most everybody knows us for our youth program, our sports performance, our Olympic weightlifting. We do, in fact, have an adult group fitness program, but Conrad is going to come in with his experience and help us really bolster that and build that up even more, and help us out continuing to grow our sports performance program. So we're really excited that he's going to be bringing all that experience here. I think he's going to be a great asset to the team. So I want to let him talk, give his background, go from maybe when you started sports and up till today. Give us the spiel.
Oh shoot, man! Starting the sports.
Yeah.
I think the first time I touched a soccer ball was less than a year old or something. But that is my main sport background, is through soccer. I played a little bit of everything, like baseball, basketball, track, until high school. Kind of filtered out and just got serious about the soccer stuff. And first got into a weight room at a sports performance facility when I was 9 years old. So I have decent amount of weight room experience now. We talk about
So how old are you now?
I'll be 29 in a month.
So almost 20 years
Yeah.
of weight room experience?
Yeah. That's kind of weird to think about.
It's a lot more than me.
Well, especially when you see people walking to the gym, you're like, yeah, man, I've never really lifted weights before. And you're like, we got you.
Yeah.
We'll get something together. But yeah, I don't know. Started CrossFitting in 2013 as a way to stay in shape over the summer going into my senior year of high school. And the soccer season in every state but Iowa is in the fall. So it worked out pretty well. Put on 10 pounds of mass that summer, getting into the season.
Wait, so you tried to put on 10 pounds of mass? That's a good thing for soccer players?
Depending on where you're at. So I sat in the back row.
I'm being facetious.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I got you. I was out there to enforce some shit.
Okay. So you're a defensive player?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I'm not the most knowledgeable when it comes to soccer. You were a defensive back, is that, or no?
Center back.
Center back, yeah. So, but there's center back, was it right back, left back, or outside back? Or?
Well, yeah. It depends on the formation
Okay.
and stuff.
Center back, though, correct me if I'm wrong, but you play, you can go up more, right? You're generally a little bit more mid. No,
not totally.
you're just the captain of the backfield, maybe.
That's a good way. Yeah.
Still no.
So you obviously have the goalkeeper, and then we ran what would be a 4-4-2. So we had the two center backs. So we were kind of the last ones before the goalkeeper.
Okay.
But yeah,
So you had two center backs.
Yeah.
Ah, see, I played a lot of FIFA. So you explained the formation. I'm okay, so I can see it now. Goal, two center backs, then it's your midfielders. You said 4-4-2, right? And then your forward. So you got your right wing, left wing.
Yeah.
Right. Center. I don't know, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, all right. So you play a lot of soccer.
Yeah. But then I've been continuing CrossFit ever since, and that's like I said, we run group fitness classes. We are still affiliated right now, so we are CrossFit gym, and that is our main thing. We do a lot of personal training on the side, and then a little bit of like sports performance trickled in there, which is honestly like, going into kinesiology in school, like that was my game plan. That was my goal. I even minored in coaching, which had a lot of like psychology.
That's a thing?
Yeah,
A
Michigan
minor in
State,
coaching? You went to Michigan State?
Yes, sir.
God,
It's
we,
been
we might need to rethink this. ILL. At least you're not an Iowa guy, which,
right?
yeah. I mean, we can bond on that. I did not know you went to Michigan State.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dude, there is nothing paralleled to an Iowa fan like a Michigan fan.
So you don't like Michigan fans like I don't like Iowa.
We call them Walmart Wolverines, dude.
The problem is everybody watching is an Iowa fan. So you guys, if you didn't know, diehard Illini fan. So I'm from the other side of the river.
And obviously a Spartan. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So after you played soccer up through high school, right? And then that's when you transitioned. Well, you had done, you had trained for that, done CrossFit throughout high school, went to college. And then what did like your training look like during college?
That was a lot of like coaching for a membership type stuff, just finding a gym that would work with me and being like, hey, how many coaches a week should I coach, or classes a week should I jump in, coach, to be able to like, just work out and everything. Obviously being a broke college student, you got to make work what you can.
Oh yeah.
A little bit of gas money on the side to be able to get to the facility. So I did kind of hop around a little bit from different CrossFit gyms. You would try out this one that was the closest to campus. And then you would hear about another one being like, all right, I'll go check it out. Before I ended up at CrossFit Shift in the Lansing area. And that was the one I was at the longest. Mostly because like they had the best resources. They had like next level coaching where everyone actually cared about their coaching and was continuously trying to educate themselves and improve their coaching and everything. They sent a team to regionals, which, that's
a long time ago. Yeah.
That's a thing of the past now. But it was just like, it was all about, hey, how much better can we make ourselves to then make, the people that walk through the door better. And It was like, once I was there, it was like, all right, this is the culture we've been chasing for so long. Yeah.
So if anybody knows me, they know that like I'm a kind of a snob for like high level performance. I think I've probably been on record to say like I really only care about like elite level performance. Like I just don't enjoy kind of the the half-assing of things, I guess. Like for me, it's like if you're gonna do it, you might as well do it the best way, right?
Casualty of.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not a huge casual guy in anything that I do in life. So anyways, like with that being said, I think a lot of people should recognize that like I wouldn't be bringing you in if I didn't feel like you were the right man for the job, and kind of definitely not somebody who half-asses anything, right? So anyways, I just think it's very important to give, how, experienced you are as an athlete. But then, okay, so after, when did you start coaching? You said coach for a membership, I guess, in college, but then like when were you like a full-time coach?
So that would have been my last semester in college. I was coaching full-time while finishing up my degree. So that would have been 2018. Had a full schedule of classes, and then some personal training clients on the side.
And then what brought you to the Quad Cities?
It was kind of a lot of things, just dominoes fell into place, right? So obviously COVID happened, and if you didn't know, Michigan was relatively strict on fitness facilities. So that was March. We thought we were just going to be in like a 2-week shutdown, and then it ended up extending all the way to September. And just,
So you were coaching at a gym and they shut down, and
yeah, we had to.
Yeah.
And then they were able to like resume operations in September, but by that point it was kind of like, we had to liquidate our equipment in order to like survive type thing.
The membership base probably dwindled, and people were still scared. So like they weren't coming back to the gym probably at a rapid rate, right? Like,
I mean, people were being furloughed or laid off, so like they didn't have income, and so you know what happens when people can't spend money? Obviously, you know, they take off like their luxuries. Right?
Yeah.
So from there, my now wife got a job in Chicago, and I was looking to make a move closer to her. And just coincidentally, the like full-time coach at Live Active, he moved to Las Vegas, and my cousin was a member at Live Active. So he calls me up and goes, "Hey man, you need to check this out. We're looking for like a head coach or someone to fill in as like a full-time coach here. Here's the owner's number. Give him a call and, you know, basically put your tab in." So that I was like, all right, you know, it's closer. It's not quite in Chicago, but you know, it's closer. Cuts my drive in half. And it was supposed to be a temporary position. So as the owner was going into the fire academy, I was basically supposed to be just like an interim head coach for the 10 weeks to just fill in, and then we would transition back. And during that time, I was supposed to be looking for job opportunities in Chicago still.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. During that time, Abby decided, you know, Chicago's not really for me.
Mm-hmm.
And on her visits out here, she was like, kind of like this place, like it's, you know,
quieter.
I call it like the suburb of nothing, right? Because it's like not outside like a major city.
But it's like a suburb for sure.
Yeah.
We have a lot of friends from Chicago because we went to college there, and they'll come visit and they're like, this is just like, you guys make it out like this is the boonies, but like, which it is, but like, but like once you're here, you're like in a suburb essentially.
Yeah. It's like a suburb of cornfields.
Yeah.
You know?
So like once you, instead of like when you leave a suburb, you go into the city. When you leave the suburb here, you go into the cornfield.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're children of the corn.
But yeah, after that, I had the opportunity to extend and stay on. That developed later on into the opportunity to purchase the gym, and you know, long story short, here we are.
Yep. So, and then the old owner and I have been friends for a long time. And so she introduced me to Conrad during this time. We've, you know, hosted some mutual events or some joint events together.
I think the first time I met you was at the liftoff when I was here.
Really?
I'd been here. Yeah.
The first lift. Yeah. The liftoff. Yeah. I got you. Right?
Yeah.
I think it was, okay. That was the one at your gym you're talking about, right?
Right.
Yep. I think so too. Because I remember, if you haven't met Conrad's wife, Abby, she's ripped. And everybody was commenting about her abs like popping out through her shirt like that day. So that makes sense.
She was just changing weights. She wasn't.
I know she wasn't. It doesn't matter. She's got like, she has these abs that popped out through the shirt. But everybody's like, dude, just the weight changer. It was the weight changer. She's got crazier abs than me. So yeah. Anyways, I do remember that. Yeah, and then you know, obviously we've grown, you know, very rapidly here at Rep, and it's just been a really, you know, we've stayed in touch the whole time and been good friends, and it was a mutually, you know, good opportunity for us to kind of take this step. So we don't want the whole show here to be kind of about the transition, because you know the you know, I think everybody's gonna see how awesome that is. We kind of want to talk more like, you know, Conrad's probably one of the few people that can, you know, talk training with me, I would say. And like, we could probably like challenge each other on some things, and can nerd out at probably similar levels. Like there's not, you know, not a lot of people realize it, but like I could nerd out on some training pretty hard. So,
oh yeah.
What would you say? I always ask people like, what would you say that the biggest thing that youth athletes need to focus on with their training? Or what, I guess maybe what would you say that like, if you could talk to your younger self and like be like, hey, like this would be, you know, beneficial, what would you say?
Dude, it's all like I had a coach that told me, like, your pyramid's only as tall as your base allows. So it's building that foundation as broad and as stable as you can to then, like, because with youth athletes, you don't know 10 years down the road if they're still going to be playing even like the same sport, where they are going to end up. So, like, the broader, best base that you can create with them allows them to then exceed to the longest point. And I think, like, I didn't play soccer was the only sport that I did like travel ball in, but I still think, continuing to play the other sports, like I did recreational basketball just through, our Parks and Rec department through high school. And it was like just for fun. I thought I was just hanging out with my buddies, but at the end of it, like I was still utilizing like different facets of athleticism.
Right. And it probably felt like an off season from soccer, which you needed, right? So like it was like, the mental break from the sport, that's the ultimate goal, right? So most people, if they play multiple sports, they have one that at some point kind of takes precedence, right?
Yeah.
And for you, right, that was soccer. But at the end of the day, you still need an off season. But playing another sport allows you to still have a similar mental break from the sport. Now, it's not a mental break from sports in general, which I think is important as well. Yeah. But I think, just having a mental break from that sport, because you didn't take it that serious, like you didn't take it as seriously, right? Basketball,
totally just for fun. Like there was no pressure to it. Like obviously, we wanted to win and everything, but at the end of it, we knew like it was the Parks and Rec department.
Right.
It's not like we were fighting for scholarships or like any of that stuff.
But during that time, you're still getting better. Like you're still like improving certain athletic qualities that transfer over to soccer. And basketball and soccer actually have a lot of similar traits, right? So, and that's like basically what you're alluding to is something we call the pyramid of specificity, right? And it's like the idea that when you first start out in your journey, that like all sports kind of carry over to each other, and you should kind of milk that out as long as you can. But then at some point, like, playing basketball is probably not going to carry over to soccer to make you any better because you're already so good at soccer, right? In which case, like, maybe there's one sport that's just slightly closer to soccer, and that might still have some transference. But again, at some point, like, Leo Messi, for example, does not play other sports to transfer over to soccer, right? He just plays soccer, but he's at the tip of the pyramid of specificity. So, you got to build the base, play all the sports, and then kind of slowly, maybe not even take the sports away, but shift precedence or shift like how the frequency, right, or how long the season is in the sports, right? Like,
yeah, and I mean, like, once you have to start making decisions. And this is honestly why I stopped playing baseball in like 7th grade when I did, was because like there was so much conflict with soccer. It was just like, all right, like, I'm basically, if I had 2 practices at the same time, it was gonna be soccer,
right?
So, and that's what you're kind of getting at is like, like there has to be a point where you do make that decision.
And if you were to go play college soccer, like then basketball would have dropped off, right?
Yeah.
Or, it's like something probably would have dropped off. But I always tell people too, like, I think, a lot of people nowadays, they hear like, well, college coaches want you to play multiple sports. And I think that's true. I just think that sometimes people, like, they don't understand like the reasoning behind it. And I think the biggest reason that I've kind of seeing and hearing is like, okay, let's say that you're a college, soccer coach. And right now, that this athlete that you're recruiting is currently splitting their time between 2 different sports, like, so let's say basketball and soccer. And when they come to you and play for you, they're only going to do soccer, which means now they're going to take, so 100% of their time is going to be dedicated to soccer. That means that there's a lot more potential left in that athlete because they've currently been splitting their time 2 ways, right? Let's say there's an athlete of equal skill level that's 100% playing soccer and has done so for the last 5 years. That athlete's probably much closer to their genetic potential in their sport than the athlete who's been this entire time splitting their time between the 2 sports. And And so anyways, you're going to take one athlete and he's going to go from playing 100% soccer to 100% soccer, where now you're going to take one athlete that's going from 50% to 100%, right? And that's kind of the example. And again, all else being held equal, if those two are the same athlete and they're basically the same skill level, the coach is going to take the athlete who's played multiple sports, because now when he specializes them, they have higher potential.
Yeah. That, along with, like, there are other factors like injury risk and everything.
Right.
Absolutely. But yeah, you totally are, like, the athlete that narrows down their focus too early very much has like a limited growth potential.
Well, because their base isn't as big, right?
Yeah.
Like we talked about, a pyramid scientifically, right, is only as high as its base is, right? It's a perfect like triangle essentially, right? If you're drawing it on a whiteboard, right? And so the wider the base, the taller the pyramid can be, right? And so the person that we're alluding to that's only played one sport for the last however many years, they just have a really small base. And that alludes to both, like the way I think of it too, is like which you can create a really tall, skinny, like I guess like Washington Monument looking, pyramid, right? But which one's more likely to tip over?
Yeah,
so from an injury one, it's way more fragile, right? Like, and also if you like, you're fully reliant in that case, you're probably like heavily reliant upon your skill in that sport, right? Because that's what's gotten you that pyramid. Where the other person might be like maybe slightly less skilled, but they're just way more athletic. And if they learn the skill portions, then they're going to be just way light years above the other athlete. Right. So, and that's kind of what we do at Rep, is like, we're trying to build the base for the most part. Like we're like into the base building. Like at the end of the day, we're not your soccer coach. We have footwork drills, we have speed agility drills that we do, but they're still general, right? We're not, we're not the skills soccer coach who's kind of building more of like the pyramid up. We're kind of focusing on building the base.
I mean, that's any like strength and conditioning program. Like that's the goal, right? Like even at these college and like professional levels, the king of the weight room is not always the best player on the field. In fact, like it's usually not.
Right.
And that is obviously never to say like, don't try or don't go hard in the weight room. Like, yeah, like give your effort. But at the end of the day, like your role as a strength and conditioning program is to provide the tools for that sport.
We create the potential. I think that's like, again, we're building how wide the pyramid base is. So what is that? The wider the pyramid, the higher potential, right, growth. And I think that's like, there's this concept in strength conditioning where I think a lot of people think we don't want to gain muscle. I think there's like, it's kind of an old school thought, but like, I think they're like afraid of building muscle. I think they think that a lot of times it reduces mobility, could reduce speed, whatever. When in reality, really all we're doing when we build a bigger muscle is we're creating a muscle that has a greater potential to produce force. Right. So it doesn't necessarily produce more force immediately, but it has a greater potential to produce more force. So as long as you plan on doing the correct training after you've built the muscle and plan on doing the sport that you're planning on playing like a lot, like your goal is, then it's good to build a bigger muscle, because that bigger muscle is a greater force potential than a smaller muscle does.
Right.
But again, it doesn't have a greater force producing capacity immediately necessarily. And I think that's where people get it twisted, is they're like, oh, well, now we're just bigger and slower. We just got these bigger, slower muscles. And it's like, yeah, but if you train those bigger muscles properly, they have a lot of potential to produce a lot of force.
I mean, we could get super nerdy and get into like the muscle fiber types. And there is actually like, you do have the potential to transition muscle fibers. If I remember correctly, it's about like 30% of your muscle fibers have the ability to transfer through. And like, as we transfer from like type 2A to type 2X, you are going to like type 2X is usually a thicker diameter muscle cell, right? And that's going to look like a bigger muscle. It's very difficult, especially in a trained athlete. Like you don't add muscle cells very much, right?
In a very trained athlete, for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Like in the youth athletes, like, yes, as they're growing, their body's constantly like adding cells and everything. But as we get farther into that training, like your potential to increase the number of muscle cells decreases, and it's the size of the muscle cell the main hypertrophy thing that we see.
Right.
And that's all, barring whatever extra supplements you decide to jump on.
Hopefully not. Hopefully none of those.
Depends on what you're.
I don't know.
If you're a bodybuilder, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too. That's a whole nother topic. But like we get a lot of parents or kids are like, well, I don't want to look like that, like a bodybuilder. And I'm like, well, are you planning on taking steroids? Because if you're not, you're never gonna look like that, right? Or a female like athletes, right? When they're like, well, we don't want to look like that, like a bodybuilder. And I'm like, again, are you planning on injecting, male hormones into your body? No? Okay. You don't got to worry about that. Like
it doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen overnight. Like you're not just going to wake up and not recognize yourself in the mirror. Like
and as if, like, again, it doesn't happen by accident. You realize how hard that person had to work. Like, I know that, like, that's not what you want to look like, and that's fine, but they did, and they worked really hard to get there, and they did a lot of purposeful activities to get to that. It didn't happen on accident. So again, if you don't want that to happen, trust me, it won't happen. Like, if you don't want it to happen, it won't happen because they tried really hard to make that happen.
They aligned all of their decisions and goals to get to that.
Right. Yeah. And our goals are performance-based, right? So, okay, so you said big thing for you would be play lots of sports, right? Like at least at the beginning, right? Don't specialize early. Try to delay the specialization, right?
Yeah.
And so anyways, I wanted to get on with, that's more of like sports. How about training? So like, what would you say, if you were talking to a youth athlete, like about training at a young age, what's kind of some of the main, what do you think should be some of the main goals?
I mean, it's a lot of focused around like what's their biggest hole right now, overall, everyone's looking to get, I'd say the goal is like, hey, we're trying to get stronger because that strength is going to provide width to that base.
Yep.
Where it gets kind of nitty gritty is like, how does that strength happen? Some kids totally lack stability. So it's like, all right, we need to like make sure you can be stable with load, or stable even just with your body weight, to then be able to branch into building that strength. Other kids that have, that stability developed, it is, all right, now we're going to start to overload and actually put like, let's put some weight on you and try to actually go through more of like a traditional progressive overload, but there's very few negatives to being stronger.
Right. No, for sure. And I think really what that I agree with that. I mean, I'm a strength is kind of like behind everything kind of guy.
Right.
And I think where people get it wrong is they see a lot of professional athletes that don't look super strong. And what they don't realize is, one, you can't argue that if they were stronger, they wouldn't be even better, right? Like, it's very hard to argue that, like, if Kevin Durant would have just put on some freaking muscle, like, he probably would have been even better, and he might not have torn his Achilles. I don't want to say that, but, like, it's possible, right? Like, you just don't know, okay? So it's very hard to say he wouldn't have been even better if, again, he's, world-class Hall of Famer, like all these guys are. But you still can't argue that they wouldn't have been even better with a better training system. And I think that about a lot of pro athletes. I really do. Like, I think it's crazy because I think a lot of pro athletes are amazing despite their training, not because of their training.
Yeah. I mean, even look at like Michael Jordan in The Last Dance talked about it, of like, he was not a fan of the weight room and he thought it was like stupid until he saw his edge, like his gap lessening, and guys started to sneak up their performance. And then he was like, all right, guess I do need to get into the weight room. And in the time, like, we're not super deep into how to train acceleration with weights and stuff. It was just pretty much like, hey, pick up the dumbbell.
Yeah, bodybuilder, Cal. Yeah. I think too, though, a lot of these professional athletes too, and we had a video on this recently, but a lot of people are talking about how like they train when they're professional athletes. Like, they look at like, oh, how did Michael Jordan train when he was a professional athlete? It's like, well, at that point, his trainer is really trying hard not to freaking injure him.
Yeah.
Like that is like number one goal. If he injures him in the weight room, he's fired.
They have to be able to play.
And he's never getting a job in the league again.
Yep.
Right? So, but here's the thing. If you get, and again, we have an amazing success rate as far as like low injuries. I mean, I can't even remember the last kid that ever even tweaked something here. But the point is, if you're young and you tweak something, you can recover, and you're not in the pros yet, right? You're not losing money.
Yeah.
So like the point is like when you're young, that's the time to push the training a lot harder. So don't train like your favorite athlete trains now. Train like they did to get there, or train like they should have trained to get there.
Right.
Right. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that everybody wants to look at like, what is, James Harden just eats potato chips and whatever. But it's like, yeah. And again, James Harden would be better if he didn't just do that.
Really, or you just...
Dude, he's James Harden is just known for kind of being lazy, I hope James Harden watches this and is like, at me. But like, no, he's just known for being lazy, right? There are guys that are known for being lazy. He's uber talented.
Yeah.
And all these guys are uber talented, and they're uber obsessed with the skill portion of the sport. And I think that's super important. But you need to understand that there are a lot of athletes that would be better if they were more dedicated to the physical preparation of their sport. And I think there's also athletes that go the other direction. I always simplify it like A plus B equals C. A is your skill, B is your physical preparedness, C is your result. There's some guys that have a really high A, like super skilled, James Harden. I mean, maybe never picked up a weight in their life. So really low B, right? Maybe their cardio is good though. So that's a little bit higher on the B, because I kind of classify those all together, right? Physical traits. But still pretty high A or pretty high C, because their skill is so high, right? Vice versa, you have a guy, I would say like let's say like a Dikembe Mutombo, or like maybe a Dwight Howard, who's like jacked. Blake Griffin would be a good example, right? I'm sorry, I'm talking basketball. That's my sport. But you follow, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, maybe you have those guys who their skill level is definitely not as high, right? Like Dwight Howard could not shoot a free throw to save his life, right? Even Shaq could be maybe in this, right?
Yeah.
So could not, like their skill level was on the lower end of things, but their physical traits were so much higher, and that created a higher C. And then you have the guys like LeBron, who have pretty high, very high A's and pretty high C's or B's and extremely high C's, right? Absolutely. And so anyways, that's kind of how I look at things.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And like for some of the guys that are out there where it is just like they can take their A that high, they can just kind of like lay back on some of that. Like, what are the chances that you or your kid's genetic potential is the same as that?
Exactly. Your A is never going to be as high as their A. So you best bet you better get your B up.
Yeah.
Right. Like your skill is never going to be, I'm sorry, I can pretty much guarantee you, because we have like 25 people that listen to this, that none of you are going to be able to shoot as good as James Harden. So to make up for that, maybe you should come in here and work harder and get your physical traits up, right? So that you could get close to the same C as James Harden, just because you're never going to have the same A. Right. So, but really what this all goes back to is, just because James Harden, or just because these athletes have such good performance, doesn't mean it couldn't be even better if their physical traits were even higher.
Absolutely.
Right. And so anyways, that's like something I'm passionate about, because I'll be like, kids will be like, well, so-and-so doesn't do this. And I'm like, yeah, well, they should. Like they'd be way better if I trained. I guarantee you, dude, like if some of these strength coaches, dang well, like at that level are not, they're getting there sometimes through politics, and they're not always the best. I'm generalizing, but
it's this, hey, I got, new head coach comes through. Hey, here's my guy that I trust.
Right.
And do you know who Ron McKeefer is?
Mm.
So when he was I believe it was when he was at Tennessee.
Okay.
He won like recognition as the Under Armour strength and conditioning coach of the year.
Okay.
Basically being like, hey, you are the best strength and conditioning coach in the country. Head coach gets canned, he gets canned next year.
Right. So he's the best. Yeah, he's the best in the country, yet he gets fired the next year because it's that much of a political. I mean, they're a package deal, right?
New head coach came in. Hey, like, you're awesome at your job, but I don't know you. I have this relationship.
Yeah, I have a relationship. Literally, it's about a relationship. So the point I'm getting at is like kind of in that public sector. I mean, I like with the universities, like it's not the same in my opinion. I think that we can do things a little bit differently. I think they have some regulations. They got to they got to be very careful with their athletes. Like they like uber careful to the point of like maybe not pushing them as hard as they need to be pushed, that kind of thing, especially at the professional level. Yeah. The professional athletes are making way more money than their strength coaches are. So their likelihood of listening to them is less in many cases. Like you want to hate that, but I promise you, like, I mean, like I listened to this interview. Jimmy Butler was on Hot Ones, like and they were like, so he's like, so what's the biggest difference between college and the NBA? And he goes like, the way that they coach you. He's like, in college, like they're gonna be up your ass, like they are gonna be like. I mean, they basically own you, especially before NIL, right? NIL, maybe things are different, right? But especially before NIL, dude, you were like a peasant, right? As a player in college. Yeah. He goes, and then you get to the NBA and he's like, you make more money than your coach does. You're kind of, whether you should or not, you have a little bit of an ego, and the coach can't really talk to you that way also because you're a grown man. You might be almost as old as your coach. Like LeBron, LeBron, I think, is older than JJ Redick. I'm almost positive LeBron is older than JJ Redick. I think you're right. So anyways, that's kind of the point, is just don't take your heroes and like only do what they're doing now. Do what they did to get to that point. So, what about like your competitive background?
I mean, as far as, like, again, coming back to soccer, like we played at a high level. I had the privilege of being in a really good location. So we had like super high competitive, like our crosstown rival was the national champ one year,
Wow.
And this is all like club, like travel ball. This isn't even getting into the high school stuff. And so we floated around, like we were always within the top 5 within the state, which then put us within the top, usually probably like 25, 30 in the country from a club level. And then going into high school ball, we were always pretty high within like typically within the top 5 of the state. So I would argue played a decent level of soccer. I chose not to play college soccer. Mostly just like I was burnt.
Yeah,
psychologically, sure. I was spent.
Which is important. I mean, a lot of kids and a lot of parents do not understand that because here's the thing: it's like you haven't trained hard enough to get burnt out. They're like, "Well, I'm not burnt out, right?" Or I don't feel like I'm gonna burn out. And it's like, yeah, because you don't train, like you don't work, like you don't do it enough, like so. The goals that you have don't align with what you're doing, right? So like, I get kids and say, hey, we get general goals from them and we get specific goals, right? Like we want to say like general goals are like, I want to run faster. I want to jump higher, like some things like that, right? Those are my general, what I want to get out of this. Then we say, okay, give us a couple concrete specific goals. Like, I want to win, first team or I want to be on first team all conference. I want to, golf, I want to win state, or I want to go to state. It could be, I want to go D1. Like there's some things that we can say, yes, this happened, or no, it didn't happen. Or if it could be a time, like if we're in track athlete, I want to run under this time. I want to throw this far, whatever. It could be something that's very measurable. But anyways, they'll give me these goals and then I'll be like, okay, so what's your training currently like? And I'm like, well, that's not going to get you that. Right. And so no wonder you ain't burnt out, because you haven't done what is going to burn you out. And I think that's like the balance as a coach. And I think that's where we come in, is like our ability to have fun and then still get the work in. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, going into my senior year, like obviously my goal was pretty team oriented of like, we wanted to attack and get after states. We had a ton of seniors and we were pretty stacked up for it. I ended up just falling shy of All-State. I was like an All-State honorable mention.
Honorable mention, yeah. That's still All-State. I would call it All-State. It's an All-State honorable mention.
It feels like you're just like almost poking it,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, I mean, like that summer, so senior led conditioning 3 days a week. On top of that, I was doing strength and conditioning stuff 4 to 6 times a week. And then I had like a private soccer coach like all through the summer that I met with, once or twice a week. And that was like, it's prep season, but it's still like we're not even into the soccer season.
So that's what it takes. Like it goes back to like our one of our slogans is like whatever it takes. And it's like that is the biggest thing is that these kids don't understand what it takes. Maybe kids or maybe the parents. And it's okay that you don't. That's our job to tell you what it takes. Right. But then you got to be open to it because it's going to be a shock. I think a lot of people just think, well, everybody trains the same, and it's kind of that fixed mindset, right? It's like we all do the same thing. Some of us are going to succeed, some of us aren't. And it's like, well, like, no, some of you are going to do way more than the others, right? Yeah. So, and I wanted to touch in, like, what did you, and CrossFit, right? You compete in CrossFit as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, CrossFit was definitely, I caught the bug like anyone else at the time. Like, again, regionals kind of makes me sound ancient at this point, but that was everyone's goal. It was like, I wanted to make regionals, and then from the regionals, you went on to the games. I definitely never got to the level where it was like you were going to see me at regionals, but I definitely I was training with those guys, and I would do local competitions pretty frequently.
You were on a team though that was pretty good, right? You did some bigger competitions.
I did like a rogue charity competition at one point, and that was a partner comp. And then from the team side, I was just training with.
Okay.
I never broke into the roster for those teams.
Gotcha.
But yeah, the first gym I was at, Hines Park, Plymouth CrossFit, they had a regional team. Shift had a regional team. So again, CrossFit, I definitely never broke into that next threshold necessarily. But kind of like what you were saying of there was a point where I had to decide either I'm going to graduate college or I'm going to chase after this.
Right.
I was not balanced enough or didn't have that just raw potential. I give Ben Smith, if you still know who he is, and Matt Frazier, all of them, I give them total props of earning degrees while qualifying for the games. That's absolutely nuts.
Yeah, no, I think, but there's earning degrees, and then there's, excelling and getting good grades. And, I don't know if that's always, I thought Frazier finished it later.
He may have, I'm not totally sure.
Regardless, it's really, though, it just comes down to there's going to have to be sacrifices made in any sport. And, nobody's, of course, saying you should sacrifice school, especially at a younger age. But at the end of the day, you might have to sacrifice some personal stuff, a lot of personal stuff, right? Oh, yeah. I know when I was in college, I did not party, hardly at all. I had I had the most boring, I had a fun college experience, but it was boring is not the right word, just lame. What these kids would think of as lame. I was lame, dude. I trained all the time. That's all I did was train. My college workout, my classes were booked around my workouts. Everything had the training first, and then everything else was around it, So I just don't think that a lot of people kind of understand that that's probably what it takes. And you got to make that decision if that's worth it or not,
Oh yeah. I mean, one of my roommates, he would throw parties at our apartment and everything. And I remember I would come back from the gym 8:30 at night, and I'd hang out and talk to people as I'm drinking my water and then eating my sweet potatoes and chicken.
Yeah, exactly. And that's nowadays, the last few years of my life, there's been, and same with you, right? Our athletic careers have taken a back seat to to business and life and family, right? And that's okay. And here's the thing. It's I'm not as good of an athlete as I was, I'm hoping here to get my hip surgery and make a comeback. I have a lot, I actually, I'm itching to make a comeback. But the point is like, I don't, I don't get mad about it because I understand it. Like I have not put in the time. Like I'm not the athlete that I was because my focus has been on coaching. My focus has been on, owning the business, on my family. Um, so like my dad always used to say we'd go play golf and it would be like the first round of the year, or even if it wasn't the first round of the year, and I just hadn't been playing that much. Um, golf sport is very easy to get mad, right? Like it's very difficult, right? So I'd go out and I'd hit a bad shot and I used to just get so mad. And he'd be like, you got to quit. He's like, you're making me mad because you're getting mad. And he's like, he's like, what did he say? Like, basically, he's like, you don't have the right to be mad. You haven't put in the time. He's like, you cannot have any expectations. You can't come out here and expect to play good when you haven't put in the time. Yeah. Right. And so he's like, if you had put in the work and put in the time and then you come out and play bad, I understand it. I understand being mad, but you haven't put in the time. So you don't have the right to be mad. Right. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. My career is like, I can't be mad about my performance. I haven't put in the time.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And like, so I do try to jump into class at least like a couple times a week.
Yep.
And same type of thing of like, I can definitely tell there's, I'm like, man, I should not be this wrecked from this workout. But same thing, like my tolerance level for training just isn't what it used to be.
Right.
Hit a workout super hard, quick nap, snack, and then jump back in and like start hitting weights and stuff. I'm like, hit a Metcon right now. I'm like, yep, that was it. That was a day.
That's it for the day. But here's the thing too, like what gives me solace, I guess, or like what doesn't, like why I'm okay with it is because I know what it takes to get to that level. And so like, it's really just a decision for me. Right. And it's the same with you. Like if you ever want to be that athlete again, you know what you have to do. Right. For me, I've dealt with some injuries over the last few years, and I know that you have too. And so that part sucks. Like when you have an injury that's holding you back and you can't just make a decision to get better, right? Like you have to deal with the injury first. Like for me, I'm getting hip surgery. Like you have to deal with that first before you can make that decision. But I tell this to a lot of people with like weight loss too, is like, I'm known as like I like to like yo-yo diet, right? But for me, it's like fun. Like I'm going to cut down for summer and then I'm going to like bulk up for winter. But during football season, I like to
I thought your hack was a vacation. Plan a vacation.
There you go. Which is in the summer. My wife's a teacher, so the only thing I can do is go on vacation during the summer. So yeah, no, 100%. I'm planning a vacation and then I got to get ready for the vacation. So, but anyways, the reason like for example, I think my mom has told me like it would stress me out if I lost a bunch of weight and then I gain some of it back, right? I think it happens to a lot of people. It stresses them out. But for me, it doesn't, because I know how to lose it. Like I know that I'm going to gain it. I don't expect to not gain it because I'm not watching what I'm eating at all. I'm eating whatever I want at any point in time. So I don't expect to be skinny, right? Now, if I was watching everything I was eating, count my macros, all these things, and I'm not losing weight and I'm not, my body composition isn't what I want it to be, then I would be concerned and I would be mad. Again, same thing with training. If I was doing all the things right and I'm still not performing the way I want to, then I can be mad. And I think a lot of athletes can take that away as like, one, if you have to take time off due to injury or you have to, modify your training, don't stress out about it because you knew what it took to get there. So when you come back, you know how to get back there, right? Especially if you have a coach. Yeah. So
how quickly do you think people jump to, like, well, maybe it's a hormonal thing or maybe it's this when, and that
we're going to have to do another podcast on this, but yeah, go ahead.
Or even like, man, like my training just isn't improving when it has kind of been like, we've gone through that process. And like, I mean, I've gone through a point where, again, like I was weighing, measuring everything and got really jacked over time. And same type of thing, like I know I'm not doing that same type of process anymore. Like,
yep.
But yeah, just how quickly some people are just like, well, it is probably hormonal. And it's like, you've been at this like 3 weeks, homie. Like,
Yeah. So here, I have a great answer. Like this is probably the thing it's a very passionate answer. So in both when it comes to nutrition and to training, everybody likes to set boundaries, okay, or limits. It even business, okay. And so in the hormonal case, they're saying, look, I'm doing this, this, and this, and I'm not seeing the results that I want to see. Therefore, I must be a snowflake and have an sort of hormonal issue, and it's just impossible for me to lose weight or impossible for me to look the way I want to look. When in reality, it might just be that this, and this that they're doing is not enough to get them to look the way they want to look, right? They might not be reducing the calories enough. They might not be, their macros might not be dialed in enough. They might not be eating enough protein, right? Or they're eating too much, whatever, right? So the point is, instead of saying, hey, I'm doing this, and this, I'm not seeing the results, it must be something else wrong. This, and this might need to be different. Right. Or you might need to train more. So again, it goes back to training. It's like, look, I'm training 3 times per week, or I'm training 6 times per week, or whatever, and I'm not seeing the results I want to see. Okay, well, you might be training incorrectly, right? Or you still might not be training enough. Like, just because you're training 6 times a week don't mean you're doing shit in each training session. Each training session could be a whole lot of nothing.
Get your 45 minutes of mobility.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's the same thing with work is like, you can say I work, I work 7 days a week. It's like, okay, well, are you actually working, or are you like, what is work, right? So I think what all that boils down to is everybody thinks that like it's a simple equation of, if I put in this, I get this out. And I get this out in perpetuity, meaning I don't ever have to change what I'm doing to continue to see progress. Because what most people, what happens is they're willing to eat, let's say they're willing to eat 2,500 calories a day. And maybe they lose weight for a couple months on 2,500 calories a day. And they're like, this is awesome. And then eventually they stop losing weight. And they still have maybe 10, 20 pounds left they want to lose, right? But what they aren't willing to do is to eat even fewer calories. They're like, I want 2,500, and there must be something wrong with me because I can't lose weight on it. And it's like, yeah, no, there's not anything wrong with you. You either need to exercise more or you need to eat less. Like, but the mechanism is still the same.
Yeah, you found your new homeostasis, and so it's sitting there.
Exactly. And so it's the same thing with training, though. Or let's go actually stay with nutrition. We get this a lot with our kids that we train. I eat so much and I can't gain weight, right? And I go, okay, you see what you think is so much, eat more than that. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what you're saying. I'm like, you need to eat more. This is what I tell you. You need to eat more. Right? That's a very general take. And there's a lot of nuance to that, but you need to eat more. And they're like, I already eat so much. I'm like, okay, I didn't say that. I didn't say that you didn't eat so much. So much is relative to everybody. That is just a complete opinion on whether you eat so much. Trust me. Okay? So whatever you eat, I don't care if you think it's so much or not, eat more than that, right? So it's like, even if you're sitting there going, I can't gain weight or I can't lose weight, and you're like, I already eat so little, try eating a little less and see what happens. Like, you probably lose more weight, right? Again, not saying that you want to keep doing that, because you probably want to expend more calories. But again, it's a matter of doing what you're doing, but probably at not the right volume.
Yeah.
Right? Training. You're I'm training 3 times a week. Well, have you ever tried 4? You ever tried 5?
Yeah. And I know like a lot of the fitness industry is focused on losing weight, dude. Gaining weight the way you want to is hard.
Yeah. And I have a lot of empathy, but don't say that like, I'm eating so much, that's why I can't gain weight. It's like, I promise you could eat more.
I remember taking spoonfuls of like olive oil to try to get my calories up.
And I think that goes back to like, everybody thinks it's meant to be comfortable, like losing weight, same thing as gaining weight. It's like, man, I feel like crap all the time. Yeah, when I lose weight, I feel like crap all the time too. And that's okay. And like, you're not different than me. Like, ask anybody who's lost weight. Until your body adapts, right? Until that new homeostasis hits, you're probably going to feel like crap, because you're pulling energy from stores on your body. Yeah. Same thing gaining weight. It's like what you just said, eating spoonfuls of olive oil. That's disgusting. right? But guess
Yeah.
what? It's necessary. It's not comfortable. People are like, dude, I'm so full. Yeah, and you might have to eat more when you're full. Like I just cannot understand that. Like everybody sets a limit and they think that everything's supposed to be comfortable, and it's not.
Watch the video of Eddie Hall and Brian Shaw, and then be like, all right,
It was like 13,000 calories a day or something like that. So
at their peak, probably.
yeah,
at
yeah, yeah.
least.
Well, I know you got to get going. I know you got something going on, but we want to definitely do this one again. If you guys are around rep, if you're a gym member, you're going to be seeing Conrad very soon. We're going to make the transition official come January 1st. So he'll be over here in January. The month of December, he's definitely going to be popping in and, shadowing and saying hi to people. And anyways, so we're really excited to have him. Reach out to us if you have any questions for either one of us, and we'll see you next time.